Hello and welcome to Hanratty on Karate. I'm sitting here with Dan Koska. Dan is a local author and a podcast producer and interviews many people around town, interesting people around Calgary. So quite surprised when he come and sat down with me. Anyway, I'm sitting here with Dan and I believe he's got a few questions that I hope I can clear up for him. So good afternoon, Dan.
Thank you, Sensei Hanratty. It's great to be with you again. I thought it would be great to ask you some questions about how martial arts are perceived, not just karate, but other martial arts as well, how they're perceived in the popular culture, particularly how they're depicted in TV and movies, and how that might give some people false ideas about what martial arts and karate are all about. First question, if I could ask you, often in the movies and TV, the fights go on for a long time. How realistic is that in your experience? How long do real-life fights really last?
Real-life fights don't last very long at all because we don't have any rules. You don't have any rules that you have to abide by. And very famous karate guy said to me once, if a fight lasts longer than 20 seconds, you're not fighting dirty enough. And that to me is honestly true. Also, what you see in the movies is very, very well choreographed. I've choreographed hundreds of demonstrations for tournaments and just to put on videos and stuff like that and TV ads. And it's fairly easy once you have a good repertoire of basic techniques, which anybody up until a Dan grade should have picked up. Putting these into a choreographed situation is pretty simple. It's basically the same as when you're training in the dojo and the instructor says, okay, you attack, you defend, use this, use that. It's all a what-if situation, which is not the case when it's for real. So that's a big misconception. You may be able to use one of those techniques on the off chance, but the opportunity presenting itself in exactly that manner, that form, at that time is highly unlikely.
And can you talk about the types of techniques you see in real life versus in the TV and movies? Because often they're very elaborate techniques using a lot of fine motor control. And I know from hearing you speak on this topic in the past, you talk about the tunnel vision and the effect of adrenaline. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Adrenaline is a drug that slams into the system. It usually comes on late and then typically you'll get an overload with it. But it's the drug that's triggered by the fight or flight response in your lizard brain, if you like. It's been there since day one when people were, say you're on the savannah, primitive man was on the savannah in Africa. Maybe he'd just come down from the trees, learned how to walk, be a bipedal, or learned how to run. Imagine if you're walking along and suddenly there's maybe a saber-toothed tiger or something pops out from behind a bush. So you got to think to yourself, do I run or not? Of course you're going to run, but you got that instant frozen moment. You have a mental interval, and unless you're going to take control of that, you're going to end up as his dinner. So this is the fight or flight response. And it doesn't just come with meeting a predator. It could come in a confrontation with another person. And at that moment, the other person is the predator. Hopefully you won't be the prey. You have to switch it around really quick to let him know that you're not prey. That's a mindset that you develop, and martial arts training will develop that mindset for you.
So it sounds like you're saying that in a real confrontation, you're going to stick with simpler techniques and not these elaborate fancy things that you see perhaps in movies.
Yeah, the simpler techniques, like most movies, as I said, are set-up situations where the guy is not able to get out of the situation. Now, if you can, in the street or anywhere else, you try and get out of the situation. Where you can't get out of the situation, or if somebody else is in danger, like somebody's attacking a woman or a child, then I would expect that you'd go straight in full bore without even thinking of it. Now, the adrenaline's got to hit you, and your fine motor skills, which you employ for, say, for joint locking techniques and things like that, they're not going to be that available to you. Now, you may have enough control that you can push down the adrenaline rush a little bit or utilize it to perform these motor skills. Years ago, I used to do skydiving, and this is in the 60s, and skydiving was in its infancy. And what I found was when you first started jumping, You got to the ground and you didn't really know what had happened. Things had gone so fast. But after a while, your brain caught up to how fast your body was moving, and you could start to perform these different functions and aerobatics or link-ups that you had to do. Utilizing your body's, it's not very aerodynamic, but there is some aerodynamics that you can use if you fold. You're usually in a stabilized position with your arms and legs looking like a dead frog, if you like. But if you push down on one side and pull the other hand in, you're going to create an airflow resistance that's going to spin you on whichever side you do. So this is the basis of aerodynamic movement within groups who do skydiving nowadays, and they do these great complicated link-up procedures and patterns. But your brain doesn't catch up with that speed. I mean, you're moving at terminal velocity 140 to 150 mile an hour just on a straight drop. And then when you start to vector your body, you can get up to anywhere up to 300-400 mile an hour or more. So it's the same thing. Your brain's going to catch up to that movement and you can utilize it. So the decisions become almost instantaneous. You don't perceive and then act. You act and perceive all in one smooth flowing action. And it's the same when you're in a confrontation. If you've been in a lot of confrontations, generally you can feel the adrenaline come on and you utilize it. Some people even welcome it because it gives them that fighting edge. It does sharpen your vision, tunnel vision as they say. It draws the blood from the extremities to protect the organs in the extreme cases, which is why you'll get a dry mouth, stuff like this. But it also does speed up your major body movements. Not your fine motor skills, you're not going to be using them. It gets very primitive. Just smash whatever's in front of you.
So you're more likely to see techniques like elbows and knees and headbutts, those kinds of things?
People clash. People fight at a very close distance. Boxers and competitive fighters always work the distance. People will dance around the ring for 2 or 3 minutes sometimes, looking for the opening that they want to get in. But in a real confrontation, they'll run straight at you. It'll be like a train. And they close the distance, and it's grabbing, biting, scratching, whatever you get. If you're not switched on, if the very idea of somebody running at you at full speed freezes you, which it does, then you're going to be run over.
How about the use of like a jumping side kick or a kick to the head? How likely is that to be effective in a street fight?
It's not. You don't see too many high kicks in a street fight unless they're entirely unexpected. One guy's determined he's going to do this, the other guy knows nothing about. He probably doesn't even know he's in a fight until he gets kicked. Then, yeah, that will work then. But I don't know if you've seen any bar fights, real bar fights. There's no high kicks. There's some great punches, so, a boxer that stands a fair chance. And if you're good at karate and you've worked your punches well and you know what weapons you're going to use and you know your distances, then you're probably going to do okay. The thing that's going to make you okay is most karate people know how to put power behind the punches. We learned this from day one. Put your whole body behind it.
Just thinking about it myself, when I think of the risks of trying to use a high kick, well, one thing is you're probably not stretched out when you're in the bar, so your muscles are cold, so you might not be capable of doing what you could do in the dojo or wherever, and also your pants may restrict your movement. You might be on a slippery surface or a rough surface. So I could just think of a lot of reasons why it could be... and you're exposing your groin, I suppose, if you kick really high.
You're definitely exposing your groin. Years ago, when karate started to get popular, when the kung fu movies came out, Enter the Dragon and all that, I remember Chuck Norris was marketing a pair of stretch pants that you could kick in. Now, Chuck's not the greatest kicker. He can kick, but he's certainly not a high kicker like maybe Jet Li and these guys,
or Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, you're not going to use that kind of thing in a bar. Anytime you're on one leg, you're unstable. You just got to remember that. So unless you're extremely fast at kicking, then you're not going to get away with it. You'd have to be somebody like my old buddy Terry O'Neill. That guy could probably kick you in the head before you even blinked. And that's the kind of speed you need. And Jean-Claude Van Damme wouldn't be anywhere near the speed of Terry O'Neill or Frank Brennan, to be honest with you. I mean, there's lots of really, really good karate guys that could use high kicks in a fight. But They probably wouldn't. Yeah, they just wouldn't.
How about the notion of knocking someone out or even killing someone with one strike? How likely is that?
It's possible to do. And to be honest with you, you often hear people are taken to court because somebody got killed with one blow. There's even incidents of boxers and karate fights where the opponent has passed away. And usually this is from a blow to the neck, right? If you go like 2 fingers below your earlobe, you have a confluence of strike points there. And they are the vagus nerve, the carotid artery, and the jugular vein. And they all carry oxygen to the brain. They're all high volume circulatory organs. So there's a lot of blood moving through the arteries and the veins, and the nerve is what regulates the flow of that. So probably if you got a bare knuckle blow to the side of the neck, if you rupture the carotid or you rupture the jugular, you're going to get a bleed out. And basically when you burst an artery like that and it's internal, unless you got to the hospital right away with somebody, a vascular surgeon, extremely specialized surgeon, puts that thing back together, you're toast.
Something you often see in TV and movies is a 120-pound woman taking on a 220-pound guy, or even a kid taking on a 220-pound guy.
Yeah.
Let's say the woman or the man who's very light, or the child, is highly trained, and the guy who's 220 pounds is just a bully with muscles.
Yeah.
Could it happen that they defeat the big guy?
I'm not saying it couldn't, but let's look at the physics of it, right? You want to apply power. You want to apply force, right? So what you need is mass times speed, okay? Now, you can only go so far with mass times speed, because if you go so fast and you have, say you've got a 140-pound woman and she can move her fist lightning fast, you also have to consider the impact on her when she strikes something. Now, if you're going to strike the guy in the gut's not particularly vulnerable. There are vulnerable points in the gut, but you have to pick them. You have to pick probably a sensory center like the solar plexus, which will affect the breathing, or a liver shot or a kidney shot. But a straight abdomen shot, there's a lot of muscle there. Even a big fat guy can just absorb that. I mean, you used to get these guys years ago in circuses would stop a cannonball. Right? I remember the Homer Simpson cartoon once where he stopped cannonballs with his gut. But that's not out of the realm of possibility. But 100-pound women fighting big guys, you're probably going to annoy them. Let's face it, let's be realistic, you know. It looks good, all these women flashing their legs up 10 feet in the air and kicking the guy in the head. You probably sting them. You're more than likely going to get your knuckles broken if you hit somebody hard enough or fast enough to do them any damage. It's going to do you just as much damage.
I believe in the past you have taught self-defense to members of the public who aren't members of your dojo.
Yeah.
So if you're teaching a woman some self-defense, what is it like? Look for an opportunity, like kick them in the groin and run away? Is that the more practical thing to do?
Mostly when you're teaching self-defense to anybody, it's all a question of attitude. As I mentioned before, there's 2 kinds of animal. There's predators and there's prey. Now, when you're getting somebody who's a predator, he's looking for prey, and prey looks different than predators. If you're walking along with your head up and you're observing what's going on around you, that's not a prey attitude. If your head's down and you're looking meek and you don't want to look at anybody in the eye, that's a prey attitude. There's also different kinds of gaits that people use. It all comes down to body language, if you like. When I'm doing self-defense seminars, and I refuse to do one-day seminars because it just doesn't work. It's like anything else. If you're going to use it, you need to practice it. But I do an extensive sit down and talk on what constitutes prey and what constitutes predator. And the thing with predators is they always think they're going to succeed. It's the confidence thing. So if you're going to try and show an equal amount of confidence or just some confidence, enough to make them think, then you're probably not going to be preyed on as much, or if at all, compared to somebody who's meek and mild. But there's also situations, right? Location is the thing. Attitude is the thing. And surprise. Turn around and use your best weapon, which is your voice. Vocalize. So, location, don't be in a situation that's dangerous. You don't go down dark alleys. Try and look confident, okay? So it's attitude. And you think somebody's following you, turn around, ask them. Just ask them anything. Can I help you? Or straight out, are you following me in the loudest voice you can? The other thing is use your voice. Just use your voice. If you're in a location where there's, let's just say it's a shopping mall and there's people around you, you're not going to get attacked. Because humans just jump in and somebody's attacking. Well, most of the time, it seems to me nowadays, they get the phones out and start filming it. But, most of the time, you're going to get a good Samaritan who'll come in there and help you out. I've done that myself. There was a video of me in Vancouver Airport taking a guy down who slapped a woman. It was many years ago. I was first there. I reacted quicker than somebody else, because I'm sure anybody else would have done it as well.
Now, something you often see, especially in movies, is the idea of someone getting a few weeks of training and somehow they're able to take on the bully who's been training for years. And I love these movies. I want to be clear. I'm not trying to single these out for criticism. It's just that it's also fascinating to learn the difference between real life and these very entertaining movies. So let's say someone's getting bullied at school and they're like given to you and they're fairly fit. It's like you've got 2 months. I'm guessing you'd say if they're going to take on a bully who has no training, then sure. But if the bully happens to have done years of training, you can't take someone in a month or two, prepare them to take on that person. Could you?
Well, no. There's 2 points there that you want to pick out. First of all, no, you don't train anybody in 2 months to defend themselves against a bully. Now, the other thing is, you're not going to get a bully that's trained. It's the wrong mindset for a martial arts student. Any good instructor will pick that out within seconds. If a bully comes into my dojo, he's pretty quickly put down. And this is another thing. Bullies only come in groups. They need backup. All right? They need peer support, if you like. Now, you're more likely to get peer support as a victim, say, in a school situation than you are as a bully. People will support you and, pay no attention to him. The first thing you're going to do, if somebody comes and they're being bullied, usually I will see that prey attitude. I will spot that straight away. Come in, heads down, meek. They're very shy about training. They're very reluctant to maybe key eye in class, something like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to bring up their confidence. They don't need the technique, they need the confidence bringing up. So they're at least able to answer back to a bully. Now, usually when you talk about bullies, it doesn't always get to violence. Most bullies use verbal abuse, and most assaults are successful through verbal abuse, either in a domestic situation with husband and wife or boyfriend, girlfriend. They're verbally abused before anything goes that far. And as long as you can spot that and do something about it, then it probably won't go any further. I'm not saying it won't, because some people are just jerks, right? And it is going to go all the way. You've got to be able to spot that too, okay, and do something about that. But the first thing we're going to do is identify what kind of signals you're sending out to this person who's bullying you. Obviously, he's picking on you for a reason, and it could be any number of reasons. But I bet your life it's not him on his own.
Can we talk a little bit about weapons? It's common to see people disarming attackers with knives and guns. Is that perhaps giving a dangerous, false impression to people?
Yeah, in fact, I've said it's dangerous. Teaching defense against knife attack is dangerous. Karate means open hand, karate. If the other guy has got a weapon, then you're at a disadvantage. I don't care who you are, you're at a disadvantage. And if he knows how to use that weapon, you're at more of a disadvantage. He doesn't even have to know how to use it. All he has to know is that this can hurt you, slice you, cut you, slash you. And the teaching of disarming an armed attacker, even police will back off a guy with a knife and use a taser. Even though they've got a gun in their pocket, or if they've got a taser, they will not tackle them. It's extremely dangerous, and giving people the idea that they can just disarm somebody with a knife or a blade weapon is dangerous. it can happen. I've done it. I have disarmed somebody who's attacked me with a weapon. But it wasn't something I consciously thought of, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. In fact, I don't know if I even used any... I couldn't tell you what technique I used. I obviously did something. I probably got hit with such a large amount of adrenaline when you see the weapon that I just don't know what happened. All I know is I walked away, right? So setting up a what-if situation where somebody else has got a knife or a gun, particularly a gun, you're not going to outrun a gun. You can't outdo a gun. It's like if a guy with a knife attacks a guy with a gun, who's going to win? Thinking yourself as some kind of Superman who's going to disarm people with weapons, it's like standing in front of a tank. You're not going to stop it.
I have a lot more questions, but I see we're almost at 30 minutes, so maybe I'll save them for a part 2 of this. I think it would be great to continue this conversation. But maybe you could end with just saying, so what should you do if faced with a situation where the other person has some kind of a weapon?
You should get out of the situation as fast as you can. If they're intent on harming you, then you're going to have to do anything you can to dissuade them or to stop them harming you. If the intent is robbery or something like that, give them what they want and go away. It's like any bank teller will tell you, if somebody comes in, demands money, the bank says give them the money, right? Don't get hurt. It's not worth getting hurt over, right? So if you're in a situation, an argument with somebody and they pull a weapon, try to defuse that situation as quickly as you can in any way you can. Okay, well, that's all for today. Thanks, Dan. Some interesting questions there, some interesting situations. I hope I answered some of them from my point of view anyway. And bear in mind that everything said is just from my point of view. But if anybody's got any questions or statements or comments, please feel free to get hold of me. Thank you.